Hi everyone, and welcome to the Chapter 6 application exercises. There are actually two portions to this exercise. In the first portion we are going to be calculating the reimbursement for an inpatient psychiatric stay. And in the second portion we're going to be looking at the top 25 DRGs for a facility, and we're going to calculate the case mix index. So the idea behind Activity 1 is to abstract information from a variety of figures and tables. The tables are located in the text, and plug this data into specific calculations to determine what the reimbursement for this encounter would be. So if you take a look at Figure 1, we see that we have some facility information. We have the location of the facility, the classification. We do see that there is a full-service emergency department at this facility, and we are also given the factors for the wage index and the per diem unadjusted rate. In Figure 2, we have claims information where we see the admission and discharge date for this particular encounter, and also the length of stay, which was 14 days. The patient's age is indicated, and we also have the ICD-9 and CPT codes and the MSDRG classification as well. Next to the ECT treatments, you also see that this patient received 3 units and the cost per unit for these particular treatments. So in the first portion of the application exercise, there are 10 steps that we need to take. And if you would like more instruction or for further clarification for these 10 steps, you can actually find them outlined on page 150 of the text as well. So for step 1, we are asked to take our per diem rate and multiply it by our given factor here and the wage index. Well, up in Figure 1, we're actually given those two, the wage index and the per diem unadjusted rate. We're given those factors. So to perform this calculation, you're going to plug those numbers in and multiply also your given factor here to come up with your total amount for step 1. For step 2, we see that we need to determine whether or not this is a COLA eligible facility. To determine if this particular facility is eligible for COLA, you can check out page 134. It gives you the criteria needed for COLA eligibility. So whatever you determine, if this is a COLA eligible facility or not, you are going to take the per diem rate, again given to you in Figure 1, and you're going to multiply it by the given rates. And that will give you the total for step number 2. For step number 3, you're simply going to add your two total amounts for step 1 and 2, and that will give you the total amount to be entered for step 3. For step number 4, we're going to be completing a mini worksheet. This is mini worksheet A, and if you scroll down a little bit, you're going to see that mini worksheet. Okay, so our first step in the mini worksheet is to enter the adjustment factor if this is a rural location. Well, we know from our information in Figure 1 that it is a rural location. The classification is rural. So the information for the adjustment factor, although they are defined in the textbook, the given rate is not listed. So I've attached a PDF that gives a little bit more information on these adjustment factors for inpatient psychiatric facilities. You may want to take a look at that. The rate as of 2007 was 17%. So in this particular cell, what we're going to do is enter the amount 1.17. I just stated that it's 17%, so why am I entering 1.17? Well, you'll see when we begin to enter the information for B, C, D, and E that all of these adjustment factors are carried by the number 1. Now when you multiply 1 times 1 times 1, you get 1. So essentially our final number will be carried by the number 1, and that will give us our adjustment factor. So for completing Part B, Again, we are asked whether or not this is a teaching facility. Well, up in our facility information, it was not indicated, so we're not going to assume this particular cell. You could either indicate 0 or not applicable, because again, in our information we weren't told that this was a teaching facility. It didn't meet that criteria. In Part C, we are going to enter the adjustment factor for the DRG. Our DRG was given to us in our claims information, and you can find the appropriate adjustment factor in Table 6.8 of the text. You would enter that amount here in Part C. In Part D, we're asked to enter the adjustment factor for the comorbidity. Now, although the primary and secondary diagnoses are psychiatric related, we do see that the patient also has uncontrollable diabetes mellitus. Uncontrollable diabetes mellitus is considered a comorbidity, and you can look up the adjustment factor in Table 6.9 of the text. For Part E, you are entering an adjustment factor for the patient's age. Again, this information was given to us in the claims information in Figure 2. The adjustment factor can be looked up in Table 6.10 of the text. So once you have all of your data plugged into these particular cells, what you're going to do is multiply all of them together to come up with your payment prospective system adjustment factor. This would be your overall adjustment factor for this particular encounter. So moving back up to our step 4, you would be plugging in your final adjustment factor here, your PPS adjustment factor. So whatever you come up with, enter that information to complete step 4. In step 5, you are simply requested to multiply your results from step 3 and step 4. So you're going to multiply these two factors and enter the given result into step 5. Okay, step 6, we are asked if this facility has a full-service emergency department. Again, we learned this status in the Figure 1 with the facility information, so we do know that it is a full-service ED. And for this particular step, we are instructed to either enter the higher Day 1 adjustment rate, or if it does not have a full-service emergency department, we're going to enter the lower Day 1 adjustment. These day adjustment rates, the amounts are actually listed in Table 6.7 of our text on page 147. So if you take a look at that table, here, as I had indicated, we know that there is an emergency department, so this is going to be the higher rate that we are going to select. So in looking at Table 6.7 in the text, we are going to use the information to complete the second mini worksheet, which is mini worksheet B, and using the adjustment factors that are listed in the text for the first Day 1 in step 6, we determine that we're going to use the higher rate, which is according to the text, you'll see two numbers there. One is higher, one is lower, so we're going to enter the higher rate, which is 1.31. Now, for Day 2 through 14, this information is in the text. You're simply going to abstract the information from Table 6.7, and you're going to plug in the adjustment factors for Day 2 through Day 14. Our next section in this particular mini worksheet is to take the adjustment factor, which we are determining from that table, and we're going to multiply it by the adjusted per diem rate. Now, we calculated the adjusted per diem rate in step 5. If you have completed this assignment appropriately up to this point, our adjusted per diem rate, I'm going to give you that factor just so that you can double check your work, but it is $888 $800.09. Oops. Okay, so for our first step here, what we're going to do is we're going to be multiplying the $888.09 by our adjustment factor, which is 1.31, and we're going to figure in our total into this particular cell. You'll have the information for your other days, the adjustment factor for these other days in which the patient was hospitalized, and what you're going to do is you're going to take each additional adjustment factor and you're going to multiply it by that $888.09 to complete the other cells in this particular column. You're not going to apply by your calculated amount from step 1 or day 1, day 2. You're going to continuously go back to this $888.09 because it is our adjusted per diem rate. So regardless of what the adjustment factor is, just be sure to bounce back up to this particular rate so that you're completing the exercise appropriately. Okay, so in moving up to step 8, what you're going to do is you're actually going to be totaling the amounts in this column to plug into our total for step 8. So once you have all of these figures calculated, add them all up, come up with your sum, and that information will be plugged into step 8. So just so you can double check your work, what I'm going to do is give you that factor. Let me put this in red. So it will be $12,965.75. Okay. So now step 9, again, we are asked a COLA question, and you had determined whether or not this is a COLA eligible facility back in step 2. So what you're going to do is, if this is a COLA eligible facility, you would use this first calculation, and all of these factors are given to you. And if it's a non-COLA, then you're going to use the second calculation. And again, all of these factors are given to you. Here we're referencing the ECT payment rate, which is under the claim information. So you are going to calculate the total for step number 9 based upon your determination from step 2. Is this a COLA eligible facility? Okay, and our final step in this part of the application exercise is to add the sum of the results from step 8 and 9. So by adding these two figures, you are going to determine what the reimbursement is for this patient's encounter for their entire 14 days at this inpatient psychiatric facility. This amount will be what the patient or what the facility can expect for reimbursement. Okay, moving on to the second portion of our application exercise for this week. We are looking at the top 25 DRGs, MSDRGs for a hospital, and we're going to calculate the case mix index. So to calculate the CMI, let's get a little accustomed to our table here. We have the volume, we have the major diagnostic category, we have the type of DRG, and we have the relative weight. What we're asked to do in for our first step is to calculate the weighted average for each DRG. So to perform this calculation, what you're going to do is you're going to multiply the volume, which is here in the first column, by the relative weight, which is in this last column. So I'm going to give you the formula. It would be volume times relative weight equals the weighted average. So you're going to use this formula to calculate all of your weighted averages for the 25 DRGs, the MSDRGs. And when you get to the bottom of this particular assignment, you are asked to total all of your volumes. So you're simply going to add up all of the information in this column to come up with your total amount for your volume. And you are asked to also come up with the sum of all of your weighted averages. So you're going to add all of the information in this particular column. So once you have these two total amounts calculated, what you're going to do to get the case mix index is to take the weighted average and you are going to divide it by the volume. So I'll give you that information down here. So it's your weighted average divided by your volume. And that equals your case mix index. I hope this tutorial helps in completing the two portions of this week's application exercise. Thank you.